with another episode of Today and Tomorrow in Scottsdale with Don and Kevin. You're Kevin, right?
I am. Are you Don?
I think I'm Don.
We are.
So we're off to a good start.
Here we are again.
And we've got a great guest again. You know, we're just lining up great guests all the time.
So much fun.
And no exception today at all. Probably this will be the number one podcast we ever do.
Yeah.
Our guest today is Jacob Johnson. He's emergency manager for the city of Scottsdale. Welcome, Jacob.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
He's got a bit of a big job.
Yeah.
He oversees the city's preparation for disasters and emergencies and coordinates large-scale emergency responses. And when you think about all that happens around here, there's a lot. He helps prepare efforts for big events like the Super Bowl, the Waste Management Phoenix Open. Jacob's worked with a variety of operations from the National Park Service to the U.S. Army. Your background goes about the length of my arm right now, doesn't it, Jacob? Tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, and how you got onto the career path that led you to the job you're doing today.
Sure. So I was born and raised in Scottsdale. I'm a native. Yeah, not very common, but yeah.
High school?
I went to Saguaro High School, class of 1998. So
yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. After graduating high school, I tried college for a little bit. Wasn't too successful in that, so I decided that I needed to try something different. So I enlisted in the Army. Okay. Joined the Army in the year 2000, and then served 20 years in the Army, retiring in 2020.
Wow.
Started off there as a wheeled vehicle mechanic, working on trucks, diesel mechanic. And then about halfway through my 20 years, I went through Special Forces selection. So I finished off as a Green Beret.
Really?
Yeah.
That's huge.
Special Forces engineer. Yeah.
Wait a minute. You were working on trucks, and then you became a Green Beret.
Right. Yeah.
That's a big jump.
That's cool.
Right?
It wasn't the easiest or most common route into that job, but I'm happy to say I've been blessed and was able to go through that. Actually, it gave me a lot of the skills that I use today.
Sure.
Planning, contingencies, interpersonal communication. A lot of the things that I use in emergency management, I learned being a Green Beret.
How'd you get the bug to be a Green Beret?
So I was in the 82nd Airborne, doing a lot of deployments to Iraq and at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And I had a lot of friends that were in 3rd Special Forces Group, 7th Special Forces Group, and other special missions units there. And they kept on just bugging me about it. They were like, they thought I had the personality, the ability to go do it. So one just decided to start training, and I put in my packet to go to selection, and here made it through. So it was a long route. That's not.
I always talk about the training that it takes to be a Green Beret. It's pretty rigorous, right?
Yes. It took me 2 years. I got hurt, had to redo a few phases of training, learned a lot, but it was blessed to make it through.
No kidding. Congrats on that. What a service. I was just going to thank him for the service he's doing to Scottsdale. He's doing service for the entire country now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then, after I retired, trying to decide what I wanted to do when I grew up. So I was in online college at Arizona State University, finishing my bachelor's degree in public service and public policy with a focus on emergency management and homeland security. So that's how the emergency management came to be. Initially I moved back to Arizona. Never thought I'd be back in Arizona, but thankfully I'm here. I have family still here. My wife, my daughter lives here. Went up to NAU did a 1 semester there in the park ranger training program to become a national park law enforcement ranger. Was able to do 1 season at Rocky Mountain National Park, and then some family situation changed. So I moved fully back into Scottsdale, and was thankful to get hired in Scottsdale in the Water Resources Division first. Okay. And then the emergency management, we spoke earlier. So emergency management as a field and in Scottsdale is not new, but it's developing. So a couple of years ago, my boss created a position called emergency management coordinator. And that's what I got hired on as initially with the Office of Emergency Management, which was then underneath the fire department.
What were you doing in the water resources? What kind of job was that?
The safety, they've changed the names now, but safety, security, and training coordinator. So pretty much making sure water resources operates under OSHA guidelines and that they get all their appropriate training.
Yeah. National Park Service, one of my favorite authors is C.J. Box. You ever read anything by him? It's all he's written like 20 books. It's all about a national parks law enforcement officer.
Really?
It's just all fiction. It's non-fiction. It's all fiction stuff, but it's just really cool. They're really cool reads. If you wanted, you probably would get into that. C.J. Box, if you wanted. If you're looking for a book to read,
I think. That's a great job. It's especially Rocky Mountain National Park was a great place to work. I was on the west side of the park, if anybody's familiar with that.
I've been up there,
and the Grand Lake side. So
beautiful,
a great place to spend a summer.
No kidding, yeah.
And
you spend winters up there too? Were you up there a couple of years?
No,
right?
I was just up there for one season.
Okay,
and then moved to Arizona.
Good timing,
full time. Yeah,
good timing for sure. Yeah,
it was snowing. I left Scottsdale. It was 90 degrees in April. And got up there, it was snowing.
Yeah.
And then I was leaving in October and it was snowing again. So
perfect timing, man.
Right.
You set that down pretty good, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But talk a little bit about your job, So, I mean, there's probably a lot of different ways we could ask it, but just overall, what's a day in the life look like?
So the main things I think you already kind of hit at, it's a lot of coordination, especially with our public safety as our main focus, our main customers. I do, and a lot of people would agree with me, special events and all of the challenges that come with them, I would say are our number one vulnerability in Scottsdale. So I do spend a lot of time, me and my coworkers spend a lot of time helping out with the planning for large special events.
Yeah.
You mentioned waste management. We have Barrett Jackson. We have, it seems like an event every month out at Westworld that brings in 10,000 people or so.
I was at rodeo last weekend.
Yeah.
Huge.
A lot of people out there?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I had no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what we really do is we coordinate with all the city departments and divisions and making sure our policies are up to date. We operate and we maintain what's called the emergency operations plan for the city. It's a huge comprehensive document that covers a broad 30,000 foot view of what would happen in the city for emergencies. We run under what's called the 4 phases of emergency management, which is mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. So we make sure that everything is kind of moving in those 4 categories, doing different projects, trying to advance and improve in those categories.
I can only imagine in the day in the world we live in today, where there's threats coming at us from who knows where, planning for big events like that's just got to be incredibly intricate and involved with a lot of different people, a lot of different agencies. And imagine not just Scottsdale too, right?
Right.
Other cities and stuff that pop in with those big events.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And that's why that's part of the reason our job exists is to help that process and to really professionalize and making sure that everything is hit. And that's where I think my background in special forces as a Green Beret really comes into play, because we do a lot of planning, even for stuff that we never go out and actually execute on operations. We plan and plan and plan, and then we think about what's the most dangerous thing that could happen or the most costly thing that could happen. And then we plan for that.
Kevin, I don't think I could sleep at night if I was worried about what
I know, right? Yeah. Now, Jake, is it mostly event based? So you have you mentioned, you ticked off some of the big events we have there, and you have plans in place for those specific events. But do we have plans in place for things that are not around specific events? Like, do we have an earthquake plan?
Yes.
I think we did. Okay.
It all starts with a threat and risk assessment. So the whole process, you do a threat assessment for the area. Right. Identify.
So is the earthquake plan a one pager?
Yeah, I would say if I had to chart, there is a hierarchy. There is a numerical value we put to that, and that's probably pretty low.
Yeah, one sentence dive under the desk.
Yeah. But earthquakes do happen in the area.
They've happened in Arizona,
not too far from us.
Yeah.
I would say as far as natural, are you speaking more of natural disasters? I would say our biggest natural concerns are wildfire.
I was going to ask,
and then following behind that, extreme winds, thunderstorms, monsoons, flooding
stuff.
Yeah. But wildfire is the big one, and we spoke just before we started going to a number of different community engagement events. We just did tabletop exercise last week, actually, with all of the city's executive team members
Oh, yeah.
and the fire department operations, talking about a wildfire and a flood scenario. So
Really?
we spend quite a bit of time on wildfire.
So tonight you're going to different communities to talk to their community members then, right?
Correct.
Okay, I see. Tell them what to do. That's great.
We need Chief. We had Chief Shannon on our Scott Roundtable last week, and he was talking about this. And he's there's some big worries this year coming up.
Right.
You know, it's drier than can be. We've had a week with a lot of rain, which only adds fuel to the fire, potential fire, with all that's happening out there. How so you work with the fire department, I imagine, a lot on that, right?
Yes.
Yeah. How does your role coordinating prevention? Because Shannon's always been big on prevention. How does that sort of jive with what you guys do?
So I have a gentleman that works with me. He's he's a seasonal or a part-time employee, so I only have him for about half of the year, and then he goes and works as an actual firefighter with the Forest Service. So he brings in a lot of industry knowledge into wildfire. His position is in wildland fuels reduction.
Okay.
So he, as far as emergency management, he coordinates with the fire department, our parks and rec, the preserve, and a number of the water resources, a number of different departments in the division to actually mitigate our wildfire fuels in the northern part of the city. So we'll go out and do projects along the main roadways, Scottsdale Road, Pima Road, around some of our critical infrastructure, water sites. And then he also works with some of our HOA, some of our communities, namely DC Ranch, Desert Mountain, some of the real big ones, and even some of the smaller ones, to make sure that they're doing their part as well, or help them to do their part, cleaning up their community to make sure that we don't have a bunch of dead brush, dead vegetation that contributes to the intensity of fires when they do happen. Because inevitably we're going to have fire, man-made, natural, whatever. It's fire is going to occur.
Yeah.
The only thing that we can prevent and mitigate is the intensity and the damage that those fires cause.
It could be a little tricky because you have to rely on residents willing to do the work.
Correct.
Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, huh?
Right.
Yeah. And so making them understand, is that one of your challenges? Maybe getting residents kind of plugged in, realizing a little bit of work now can save a big disaster down the road.
So that's one of the big focuses now, especially leading up to the summertime for the emergency management office, is that community engagement, teaching people. We in emergency management, we kind of leave that side to the fire department prevention. So Assistant Chief Swick, he's over prevention section of the fire department, and they go out and actually do the surveys of the houses, the surveys of the area, and assess some of those areas, and actually go and we'll leave brochures, leave information, or make contact with homeowners and say, hey, try to make some recommendations for what's going on. Yeah.
Cut your dead trees down.
Exactly. Yeah.
You want to save your house?
Clean up your area. For us, we really work hard and coordinate with our partners in the county and in the state to help out with emergency notifications and evacuation. That's our big contribution when it comes to the response side of natural disasters.
Chief Shannon was talking about, there's one cul-de-sac out by Lost Dog Wash. I don't remember the name of the street. That's only has one access road in, and it's right on the edge of the forest, of the preserve. And so they spend a lot of time worrying about, if there's a fire out there, how do you get people out of their houses if it's you only have one way out, one way in?
Right.
Oh,
and so little things like that people don't think about that are happening all the time. I'm glad that folks are looking at that, taking care.
And the key is for that as well. I get this question a lot when I do engage with the public or emails or random phone calls come in. Where do I go if something happens? If something's on fire, or if there's a flood going on, where do I go? And I like to make sure I point out or accentuate that it starts all this preparedness and planning, and you see what's going on this last year in Los Angeles and in the Southeast with the hurricanes and everything that goes on like that. You see that it takes time for help to come. Yeah. So it's really starts with the individual, being individually prepared, and then with your family, preparing your community. We talked about community readiness. It comes down to that individual accountability and ownership of your own area, and making sure that if you plan for your family to get out, then you're already ahead of the game.
Yeah. You're thinking
Don't
about
wait
that.
for
Right.
basically don't wait for someone to tell you what to do all the time.
That LA fire must have scared you guys
Right.
tremendously, thinking about that could happen right here.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, it could.
with everything.
Don, do you have a bug out bag?
Yeah. It's in the refrigerator.
Right.
That's big business right now online. Right?
It is.
Yeah,
it is. And
yeah.
and you know, you can get real what if about a lot of that. The main thing is, what are you going to do to keep your family safe?
Right.
Realistically.
Yeah, and there's things you can
Realistically,
do, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Can you think of a case? I don't know how much you could talk about this, even if you did, about where your efforts in preparing for something actually prevented something from happening?
So last year, I think it was the Boulder View fire. There's pictures of this on social media and online. Some of the mitigation efforts that my partner Dave has been doing in conjunction with the Preserve and Parks and Rec and all the partners that I've already listed. You can actually see a line from where the Boulder View fire was pushing down into the Preserve, and there's a line of where they were doing mechanical and chemical treatments on that area where the fire stopped and started moving. So yes, and
wow.
You know, some people in the fire department in the prevention division, they'll say like, you know, it's hard to really calculate what you prevent because it didn't happen. You know?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
And even
point.
And I like to think too, even we're going back to some of the man-made threats. Looking back to the beginning of the year, what happened in New Orleans with the vehicle attacks and happening in other places around the world. One of the projects that we engaged in after that, well, it was ongoing. These assessments and these vulnerability assessments and mitigation is ongoing throughout our whole city. Yeah. But one of the big ones we did this year for spring training is working with the Scottsdale Stadium and the police department to get extra barriers to line the road on Osborne and on Drinkwater. Yeah. So, you know, I was talking to them and explaining, you know, going back to my background in the Army, sometimes a visual deterrent is all you really need for stuff like that too. Right. So that's, you know, if you look hard, then you're perceived that way. So.
Going somewhere else. I'm going to go do a disaster somewhere else, right? So hopefully out of the city.
And you can translate not just with, you know, public for special event areas, but you can translate that into your home as well. You can, you know, just be prepared.
That's a good point. So are there resources that residents could take advantage of that maybe they don't know about?
Right. The big one I like to push people to, it's a website, ready.gov. And that one has a list of, you know, plans that you can review, has information you can review, checklist, more substance in there for all sorts of different things. Private businesses, homes, you know, accessibility, different accessibility needs, special needs cases. Mm-hmm. You can get in that website and really get in there and formulate for your family or business, schools, anything that you want. That's where I usually send people to.
Great idea.
Yeah.
Ready.gov.
Ready.gov.
Okay.
Yeah.
No,
something to look at, Kevin, for sure.
Absolutely.
Huh? Yeah.
Digging in there.
Yeah. So how can, what role do you think business and community, you mentioned HOAs, what role do, you know, all the other external folks, businesses, community organizations, what role do they play or could they play?
Potentially very big role. If we have a citywide large scale disaster here in Scottsdale or nearby, private businesses, private community businesses, they play a huge role in these disasters. I mentioned the hurricanes in North Carolina. And it takes time for government agencies to get activated, especially federal government agencies to come in and provide aid. So the people there on the scene first come from the community. And that's one thing I want to prioritize as well, is making those connections. So for me, you know, when I activate the Emergency Operations Center, which is where I would be during any of these disasters, I know, hey, I can reach out to this business and they can provide help here. That's great. You know, this business can give transportation resources here to move. They can move, you know, a good sized community of elderly or medically needed equipment and move them from here to here. Yeah. This business can be a point of distribution for food or water, you know, things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. They play a huge role.
That's good. That maybe we need to wake them up a little bit more too. Say, hey, there's some things you can do on the preventative side that might make a difference someday. So I can see your role for big events like the Phoenix Open and Bear Jacks and spring training. We do so many events in Scottsdale. I think at Canal Convergence, which is a major event. Is there any event that's too small? How far down the event size do you guys go in preparing for things?
Are you asking about my involvement?
Yeah, your involvement.
I tend to. We don't have a specific scale where I'm actually building out that policy with our partners now. So there is a metric that we would apply to that. I'm not going to, and it's not based on visitor size either. It's a number of different things, demographics, the time of year, what type of event it is, where it is, a lot of different aspects to it. But so I'll step in and, our public safety, we call it incident management team, will step in and go through the whole planning cycle for those events. But event producers have their part to play as well. The venue producers, they can be doing this internally and making sure that they're addressing their needs, doing the threat assessment, and then addressing those needs as we go along.
I see you're an event coming to Scottsdale or have been in Scottsdale for a while. Do they typically reach out to you for assistance, or do you go to them and engage with them? Like, for example, Bike Week. I think it's maybe coming out soon, right?
Yes.
Pretty big event.
Yeah.
Do you interact with those folks?
I do. And that process for the known events, because that's a yearly, we know that's coming. Probably not going to go anywhere anytime soon. So we know that's coming up. So we'll start that planning process a few weeks out officially. Okay. With my involvement in the incident management team, bringing the team together, talking about where are our gaps, what do we still need to do? What does our logistics look like? Do we have everything sorted out? But that process actually starts even before that. So in Scottsdale, we have a number of different venues that hold events: Scottsdale Stadium, Westworld, some of the smaller ones, Civic Center, Old Town itself does event permitting. So Westworld, they do their own event process, and then Westworld will bring us in for events. And we have a monthly meeting with Westworld to go over special events. We look at the calendar, we see which events they have coming up, and then the public safety team will identify, okay, we need to take a little bigger look at this one. What's this one about? Ask all these questions so they're ahead of the game when it comes to that.
Okay.
A lot more goes into this stuff than you think about. So major events pretty much are required to come check in with you, right? Or at least with the city somehow.
Right. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. There is a permitting process for each venue. They have their own related but slightly different process depending on what's going on. And that's one of the things that we're constantly looking at. Like, what do we need to change in policy to make sure that we're hitting all of these things? Yeah.
So what's technology doing to your world these days? It's changing all of our worlds. So how's it changing yours?
Making it more dangerous.
Right?
Yeah.
How so?
Well, cybersecurity threats and drones.
All right. Oh, well, yeah. There you go.
Yeah, no, I think about that with drones. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I saw. Did you see the story in 60 Minutes last week about the drones over the Air Force Base? Yeah, it was
scary.
Yeah, very scary.
Yeah. So how do you deal with it?
I won't go into specific procedures, but one thing with cybersecurity is a huge threat. I would say it's up there. Like it's because it's very costly, very likely to happen. So on the magnitude and on the probability scale, that's rising, and it's up to the top. On the man-made side for sure. Same thing. We coordinate with our IT department in the city. We have a great cybersecurity team in the city that's building their policies, building their procedures up. We do exercises throughout the year. We do at least 2 major exercises just on that topic alone throughout the year. And then on the emergency management side, there's a lot of information sharing throughout the region on those topics. We have a regional emergency notification chain. So if there was, we've had some cybersecurity incidents in the area in the past year. So when those happen, they quickly let everybody else know what's going on so they can start taking these countermeasures and protect our city systems.
What's an example of a cybersecurity threat that you would have you do some planning around it? What's a specific case of what a threat would do to an event?
Well, the big ones now that I don't think it's any secret, but foreign actors and other entities targeting critical infrastructure. So water
Ransom.
system,
Okay.
power,
Okay.
ransom,
Yep.
stealing information. But
Yep.
the big scary ones are targeting infrastructure,
Okay.
I would say.
Yeah. God, that's a constant threat now, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah. Everywhere.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know how you sleep.
How about flooding? We talked about fires. There's a responsibility on homeowners and communities to help mitigate some of the risks. But flooding is just, I don't think there's anything you can do. Is there, as a homeowner or a community, to help mitigate flooding?
Well, the big one, just understanding, and we don't have a huge flood danger here, but we do have it, and there's possibility if we get a large rain event in the city. I'm talking about 2 inches within under an hour. That's going to be
That's a flood.
big amount of water, and our infrastructure, the city was designed around Indian Bend Wash to actually alleviate some
That's
of that.
probably a huge benefit.
Oh,
to you, huh?
yes. And then we have levees built in off the 101, and we have a huge levee system.
Mhm.
That can take on extra water. Problem is, individual homes still might be at risk. So if you know that especially in the event of if this were ever to happen, if we have a wildfire really close in the area that was coming near to homes, then you would want to take extra precaution, because once a fire comes in and removes some of that vegetation, if a rainstorm dumps a lot of water on that, you increase the chances of damage from mudslides, debris slides, and just water itself.
Stuff's happening in LA now, right?
Right,
With all the rains
exactly.
over there.
Yeah. So there's ways you can, we have sandbag distribution points in the city. There's other off-the-shelf items you can get to actually protect some of the areas of your home. But just the main thing is recognizing that it's possible, and then being ready, making sure that you have your valuables, your documents, and those things protected in case
Good
you're
point.
properly insured.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
really.
the neighborhood just south of me in South Scottsdale is a floodplain,
Yeah.
flood
Mhm.
zone, and
Yeah.
those folks pay higher insurance rates than I do.
Sure.
2 blocks away.
Right.
So
Do you think
Right.
they're better prepared? Do they even? I wonder if you did a survey of people who are actually in a flood zone and they have their bug out bags ready to go versus
I don't
somebody
know.
who's not. You
Yeah.
know, you kind of wonder if they're aware of that sometimes.
And if you ever seen, a flash flood go off in the desert,
I have, I actually
it's-
have. Yeah.
it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it really is. Back to technology for a second, because we talked about that as a risk. How has technology changed your life for the better in terms of how you manage all this stuff?
I think just the research ability, starting off with building documents and just the access to information certainly helps. I remember when I joined the Army, the internet was still kind of new. So, the functional
Yeah,
internet. So I grew up in that time frame, building and growing on that, and just the data collection now, and the speed of information. It makes it for as far as like the public engagement part of it during a wildfire, it makes it easier to get messages out as long as everybody's set up for that.
Yeah.
That's one way it makes it easier. It makes us easier to connect during an emergency with our policy team, our executive team. Instead of having to go in person all the time, we can jump on a Teams meeting or a chat group, or there's a number of different ways we can communicate now.
Communication's big time.
So it speeds up communications, also increases vulnerability. You have that
Good and
balance.
bad. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sweet and sour.
it's like
man.
everything cuts both ways, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It always does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's for sure. What can residents do to make your life better in terms of being prepared, or is there's ways they can check into stuff, or maybe it's just an awareness situation, right?
The biggest thing, making sure that they can receive emergency notifications. That's a big thing that we're pushing now. The main way that we're going to communicate is helped out through Maricopa County. They use the wireless emergency alert system. So go on your cell phone, making sure that you can actually receive those wireless emergency alerts in your settings. That's number one. Also, City of Scottsdale, through the police communications department, has adopted the rave alert system. So that's an opt-in. And I have some information about that here.
Yeah.
That's an opt-in program that residents can sign up for. Even non-residents that are visiting to the area, there's a number they can text. They can text a message to and opt into messages while they're here. And that will help us speed up
That's cool. Yeah.
communication.
Is there a link or something you can share with us that we can spread around a little bit?
Yeah, let's put that on our website.
Yeah, but so it's on the city website.
It should. I know they've been putting out messages through our communications department
So I'm saying smart911.com.
Right. That's the website.
Where to go. So the
right.
website, that's where you can sign
And then
up
they
for
have
this.
instructions in there.
So
And
smart911.com.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
And then non-residents text Scottsdale to a number, but it's smart911.com is the way to go. I
You
guess,
can keep that,
Yeah,
too.
thank you. Yeah. Kevin, another great example of people doing wonderful things for our city.
And once again, Don, it's things we don't think about. I mean, who
I
knew
know.
that Scottsdale had an emergency management office and dedicated people, professionals, working to help make our lives safer?
Full time.
I mean, we always applaud our police and fire and
Yeah.
our first responders for the great job they do. They're working on plans and strategic initiatives that are done by Jacob's office.
It's amazing. And you think of a city like Scottsdale, where we're known for doing so many big events, you always kind of worry about being a target, you know, whether it's a natural or man-made or whatever. But the vulnerability, just with the number of big-time events that we do here, has got to, you know, again, I don't know how you sleep at night.
Yeah.
I'd be like, wow, thinking about all the things that could happen.
Yeah.
I'm glad I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I ought to know a little bit. So
It's okay to know.
I'll sign up for 911.com and
Yeah.
so I can at least get connected when we need to. But great conversation today. Jake,
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service in the Army and as a Green Beret, and now for all that you're doing for the city. It's amazing. We salute you for the work you're doing for us, and we really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks
Great
for having me.
conversation today. And thanks to all of you for listening. You can find us at scottnow.com, and please share our podcast when we get great guests, like great information like this. Share it with your friends and family and anybody else you can think of, and then come on back next week for the next episode of Today and Tomorrow in Scottsdale.